Oh my God, that's a hard question. Whatever money you think you need, you literally need double.
What makes a broker that gets a lot of deals versus one that doesn't?
I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life. There's nothing scarier than like saying, I'm starting a new company, get that rush of people from like LinkedIn, you go. And then you go check your emails and it's like, no emails.
How did you know you were ready to take that next leap then, in that next phase?
That's a hard question to answer.
Sometimes you don't.
You don't know. Okay, so.
Welcome back to another episode of Link Live, episode 20 today, and we're welcomed by a good friend, Allan Perales, CEO and founder of Kain Real Estate. Allan is one of Chicago's leading and premier restaurant real estate brokers, and he's helping chefs and brands alike find their perfect space. In this episode, we're talking everything from how Allan dove into his early career as a broker all the way up to now, and kind of what led him to making a pivotal decision, starting a company from scratch. Allan's take on everything was extremely interesting and had some very wise advice to share with those of you who are looking to take that next step in their career and kind of figure out where they want to land long term. So without further ado, let's hop into this episode of Link Live. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. We appreciate the support as always. Link Live, we're back with another episode today. Welcome today by Allan Perales. So very excited to have you in the studio.
Awesome. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. Allan, I think we've ran through some of the same circles throughout Chicago and hospitality and just business at this point. So, when you went off on your own not too long ago, I knew, you were someone that would be a really good kind of fit for the conversations that we have here, and kind of just giving a realistic outlook and opinion on what it takes to be successful today in business. Obviously, you've had a very successful career in a couple spaces up until this point. But
For sure.
I think, first time you've gone out and kind of done your own thing exclusively.
That's right.
So Allan is the founder and CEO of Kain Real Estate. So
Yes, sir.
I kind of want to let him give his proper background. But no, I'm just excited to kind of get that story, get it from a bird's eye view, and have you share what it's like, right? I know you're a family man, you're a father, so that is definitely also another dynamic that people always don't get to share and talk about. So let's kind of start right there. I mean, used to work in hospitality and then more so exclusively on the real estate side as well. I guess talk us through early days, like just quick background, like what piqued your interest there? Did you fall into it? Did you always have passions, lying in that area?
I think this all makes sense if I kind of give you my story.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a kid from Kimpton, Louisiana, and, first job in grocery stores, working in food, and eventually got a job working at a restaurant. And I remember the first time I started waiting tables, it was this place called Ground Patty down in Louisiana. And it's burgers and you throw peanuts on the ground, pewter mugs. And I made like $115, and I'm 18 years old. And that was a lot of money for an 18-year-old today even. So, right. So fast forward, I started managing restaurants for some great chefs down in Louisiana, and then eventually worked my way into hotels. The reason I got into hotels is I met my wife in the hotel industry. She was like the director of HR.
Nice.
And I was managing the restaurant in the hotel, and you can't hit on that. You can't hit on the director of HR, but that's another story. We connected. She brought me over to the hotel side. I worked for Kimpton Hotels, and for 7 years, I was all about hotels. I was a corporate trainer. I ran room service, front of house, front desk, bellman, doorman, and I love training, and I love like elevating the customer experience. And there's some fun stories in that. But I eventually make my way to Chicago, transferred from Kimpton Hotel Monaco in New Orleans to the Hotel Burnham in Chicago. It's state in Washington, where people know it as like the Atwood Cafe.
Nice.
So I was managing that hotel, worked for Kimpton, but the owner of the building was a guy named Dan McCaffery, a real estate developer. And he redeveloped that property and hired Kimpton to manage it. And I met him in 2004. I left in 2008 only because of the housing recession. That was wild, right? So we knew that was coming. And my bachelor's degree is in it's classical music performance on the clarinet.
Okay.
It was this weird little niche that I also love music, so I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
But to be taken seriously in the hotel industry and eventually become like a general manager or like move up to corporate, right? I had to get a business degree. So Dan McCaffery was like, Allan, you got to go get your MBA. Go to Loyola. I'm on the board of regents. I'll write you a letter of recommendation. You'll get in. So I get in, and that's from 2008 to 2010, 2 years, just fully devoted into that. And I'm thinking when I graduate, I'm gonna get back into hotels. But there's a hiring freeze from 2010 to 2013. I didn't know that at the time, so I couldn't get a job. So I fell into real estate very serendipitously. So the first thing I did, I like this story. First thing I did was, you look at jobs, and back then it was all Craigslist or Monster.com for those old guard people out there. And you just apply and apply. You just apply and apply and apply, and people don't even email you back, right? So I had this theory. I'm like, I've got 7 years of property management experience in hotels. And now I have this MBA. Like, I should be hireable. I feel like I'm better than some of these property managers that are running apartments. I was renting an apartment, and my property manager sucked, right? Like they're just like very cold and not hospitable. So I I had this theory that my resume is not fitting the algorithm, and I'm not saying the right things. So how do you look at another property manager's resume if you're not in that industry and you don't know anybody? You're a guy from New Orleans, right?
Yep.
So what I came up with, now again, the pressures, newly married. I've got a 1-year-old kid now. I got student loans coming due. Like there's a lot of pressure to get a job. So I posted a fake job on Craigslist, and it was like for a confidential luxury apartment manager, and got the job. Like well, actually, I got people applying for that job, and I could see the resumes. And I just redid my resume. And then the second thing I did is I FedExed them all to the hiring managers, sent 5 FedExes with the new resume, got 5 job offers, and I had my
Wow.
pick. And the number one company I wanted to work with, I won't say, they gave me the offer. They said, hey, you just need a letter of recommendation. I'm like, who better than Dan McCaffery, the guy that's like a real estate developer and like, respected and loved in the community. So I called him, and he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not letting, he's like, you're working for me. If that guy wants you, then I want you too. So I started working for him, doing property management for an apartment building in Rogers Park. And I crushed it. Like I increased rents. That's not a
I
good
was just
thing.
gonna say, what are the most, I guess, telling signs of a good property manager? Like, what would be the best,
So
highest KPIs for that?
it's funny. I was looking at property managers and trying to figure out um, why they weren't as good as hotel managers.
Okay.
And I think it just came down to like caring more, right? So there's this, like, the hotel industry trains people how to care. Now, like there's different levels of customer service, right? There's like if you were staying at my hotel and it was your honeymoon, and you checked in a hotel, like, they'll do something. They'll upgrade you to a
Mm.
suite. Maybe they'll give you a bottle of champagne. But Kimpton did a good job of training us to say, yeah, you can do those things and it'll definitely wow you as a customer. But those are gifts. Those cost the company money. It might be a little, whatever, bottle of wine, bottle of champagne, $10,
Right.
and you get a story out of it. But they challenged us. How do you, how do you, how do you give good customer service without hitting the bottom line? And they call them Kimpton Moments. Again, I feel like I haven't worked there in, I don't know, 15 years, but I feel
Stuck
like
with you.
it stuck with me. I
Right.
was drinking that Kool-Aid. So how do you do it for free? And it was like they call it Kimpton Moments, but it was very much like random acts of kindness. Like, how do you treat family, like your best friend, your wife, people that you love? And we would do those things. So, for example, it came down to the fundamental of like people caring for other people, caring for random strangers. These people check in your hotel, you have no idea who they are, and how do you care for them and take care of them? So, like in the property management world, you have to hit your KPIs, which is like increase rents per square foot. per month. You want to show more revenue. Obviously, you want to show more profits to keep costs in line. But then one of the telltale signs was the renewal rate of all, whatever, 300 apartments in your building in a year. How many of those renew their lease? Because it's one thing to get them to move in for a year, but then how do you get them to stay and
Right.
keep renewing? And once I learned that, it's easy to try to figure it out.
Sure.
So how do you make the experience sticky? How do you give people real hospitality that some haven't even experienced before in their lives? And so for me, it was being outward about it. I would sit in the lobby or stand at the front door of the lobby every day from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Usually that's where property managers do work. I'm just standing at the lobby and I'm trying to meet people, memorize their names, memorize their unit numbers, and asking them, is there anything I can do? And like, I remember like, it was like, I met a couple and they're like, oh, my sink is clogged. And I told the front desk, I'm like, hey, the sink's clogged. Can we send engineering to go like fix it? And they're like, oh, corporate says they have to fill out the app and request it so we can log a time. And I'm like, you fill it out. Like, and the front desk is like, we don't do that. I'm like, just fill it out. Like, you go, have a nice day. They fill it out. We call the engineer. We complete it, close it on the system. So corporate's satisfied because we're logging and tracking. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But now the customer doesn't have to log into their app. Like, we take away that experience. So it's very forward thinking, but like, then it goes beyond that. Like you would come in for a tour. If it was hot outside, I'd give you a cold towel. If it was cold outside, I'd give you a warm towel, and like just kind of create a nice experience. One of the things we did when I joined, I remember I joined in October of 2010, and our staff, we had a staff meeting, and they were complaining about customers not picking up their packages on time. So in our package room, which is probably the size of this room, was just filled to the brim with packages, Amazon, stuff like that. So I asked them what the solution was. Well, how do we fix this? How do we be more hospitable? And what we came up with was, why don't we just deliver the packages into the units?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, that's a lot of packages. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a lot of packages now. But if we do it every day, it's like 10 a day. It's not that big of a deal. So corporate was like, no, I'm not gonna blame corporate, but like people were saying like, well, you have to have permission to enter. It's not like a hotel room, hotel, they just like, I
Sure.
call and I get permission and I go in, but like we had to actually have people fill out forms. And we did that, and it was 100% participation. Everyone loved it. We were getting like, this old lady was like, oh my God, thank you so much for this program. I got a big dog and we order dog food, 50-pound bags, and I can't carry it up myself, and it's like, they're so thankful for that. And what happened was, like, a very real, tangible thing was, uh, the Christmas before I came,
Mm-hmm.
they usually the property manager sends an email like, hey, I'd like to collect tips for the workers. And the sentiment was, sure, we'll throw something in. And I think they got like $700 to split. Like $700 from this unit. This apartment building had 122 units. So of the 122, they collected $700 to split between 5 people. And that had kind of been like the going rate. And then we just did this little package program, and I started memorizing people's names and like taking care of all the problems by proactively asking for it. And we collected like 10 grand that following Christmas. Like,
Wow.
it was stupid. And they're like, now the staff's like, what else can we do? Like, how can we serve these people? And we just did it. That was like, it was very impactful. But then for corporate, it was like, we doubled our renewal rates. Instead of 30% renewing, it was like 60% renewal rates.
Wow.
And it was on the trajectory forward. But then Dan McCaffery was like, all right, you've been at it a year, you're crushing it. How are you feeling? I'm like, I hate it. Like, this is too easy for me. I want something challenging. I want to do corporate, commercial retail leasing, which is all the retail on the bottom of his developments. And he like took a chance on me. He gave me a shot. I joined that team, didn't know anything. And over the course of like 7 years, I learned the business. I crushed it. I did really well. And then I eventually joined Goldstreet Partners, my old partner, David Goldberg. He was, so if you think McCaffery, Dan McCaffery is like corporate developer. I was on a salary.
Yeah.
Going to work for David, it was, you're a broker, you're 100% commission, you eat what you kill.
Yeah.
And he completely transformed my mindset.
So I want to talk about that transition a bit, right?
Yeah,
Because you obviously had an extremely strong foundation, right?
sure.
You didn't, when we talk about the founder journey and story, you didn't, you didn't wake up in your mid-20s one day and say you're going to start then, right? It's obviously a bit of a different trajectory you took. Um,
Yeah.
Talk about that transition from working with Dan McCaffery to then transitioning with Goldstreet and what that looked like. How did your mindset shift? How were you guys going after and closing deals? And then maybe a bit about like the businesses that were most prominent then. I know you probably try to stick within a certain niche, but
Yeah, we didn't have a niche back then. So Goldstreet was only a year old when I joined the company.
okay. This
'Cause
was around, just for time frame, around what year you think?
this is I'll tell you, I started with David on my 40th birthday. So it was March 8, 9, I'm sorry, not 19, 2018. March 8th,
Okay.
2018 is when I started. So the company was a little over a year old. It was just him and this one guy, Dustin. And I came into the fold, and uh, that transition was crazy. Uh, it was a shock to me. In fact, I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life doing that, because I had a salary, I had bonus incentives, I had a corporate card, I had they bought me computers, laptops. It was like a real
Right.
corporate job, and all the benefits that come along with it, vacation time. And then you go to a full-fledged brokerage, and I remember walking into my office and like, here's your office, and it was a room and a desk and a chair. And I was like, where's my laptop? And David's like, what laptop? Like, get your own computer, get your own cell phone, like get your own, like we don't even have office phones. We just use cell phones, because when someone sees your number, I want them to reach you, not
Yeah.
go to an office line that goes to a voicemail that you call back. And it was like his mentality it was definitely eat what you kill. And it's like, let's kill as much as possible. It was actually kind of refreshing. But you know, the when you think of like commercial real estate, the deal flow takes longer. Like to put together a restaurant deal or a
Mhm.
commercial deal, I think minimally from the time you meet them to sign a lease, like some of the fastest I've seen is like 2 months, right? But often it's 4 or 5 months. And then if you don't know what you're doing, like it's even longer.
Sure.
And the way like in commercial, there's obviously industrial, office, and retail. And then in retail, like spaces, they're selling and leasing. And we were just doing leasing of retail spaces. So in our world, when we sign a contract for a restaurant that's leasing a space, we only get half the commission when you sign the deal. The other half is when they get open, so that you don't just disappear. You're sticking around for your client to make sure they're staying on pace
You
and
don't
get
really
open.
have that much control
You
over
have
what
zero
you
control,
yeah.
right? So from a money perspective, it's like I got a client. I'm like, we could look at this brand new building that's never been occupied before in a raw space, or this closed restaurant. And it's like, well, if I do this closed restaurant deal, same rental terms. If it's the same rent, then it's the same commission because it's all percentages. It's like, well, they'll get open in 5 months versus a year. Like,
Right.
so I'm going to try to go, but it actually, it also makes prudent sense for a restaurateur to, to really consider a second gen space, because
Yeah.
all that improvement, the electric's done, it's already had code pass and all that stuff, right? But that transition, so
What forced and caused that transition initially? I don't know if we brushed past that. When you left the comfort, right? Everybody talks about comfort, they're content where they're at, and it's really hard to take that step. It seems like you've taken that step kind of almost twice
I've done it
at
twice.
this
Yeah.
point. What forced that the first time?
Well,
Right, because even in the way you were explaining it, laptops, vacation, salary, bonuses,
love it,
right?
right?
To drop that and then want something a little bit more.
Let's just keep it simple. There was
Yeah.
a dispute about money,
Okay.
right? And
Oftentimes there is.
oftentimes there is. And could we have resolved it? Sure, but it just changes the perspective. And it's like, well, wait, when you get comfortable, you're just an autopilot. And of course, when something like that happens, you go back to your boys from like your like childhood friends. You're like, here's my situation, and then they give you advice. I talk to my wife, and it's like, all right, time for me to make a switch. And uh, so that's really how it went down,
Okay.
without going into too much detail. So interesting on the journey with Goldstreet, we were doing everything. We were trying to sell land in Tennessee. We were flipping gyms and yoga studios and nail salons, whatever we could do to make money. And then the pandemic happened. And we saw a lot of restaurant websites that had GoFundMe pages. I don't know if you remember this. They were like, please help, please donate money, keep our staff. So we started calling them. And we're like, hey, you don't know me. I'm like a third party real estate broker. I have a passion for restaurants. I'd like to talk to you about restructuring your lease. And I think I could be a nice third party intermediary, sales guy, friendly, to talk to your landlord about just doing like a 12 to 18 month restructure until we get out of COVID. And not everyone wanted to do it, but a dozen for sure in the very beginning were like, let's go for it. Because the thought was, if you lawyer up, it's going to cost you money. And then the landlord lawyers up, and then people are just fighting, and you're not actually just getting to like the root emotional connection here and like diving into the fears. And really the landlords were just worried that they weren't going to be able to pay their mortgage. And the restaurateurs were like, I'm going to lose my space that I spent millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars building out, and I don't want to lose it. And how do you start that conversation? So I started doing it, and I was very successful at it. And it was 100% pro bono. I didn't take a dime. I didn't take a percentage of savings. It was all goodwill in a time when the restaurant industry needed help. And all I said was that if you ever decide to open another restaurant, like choose us, choose Goldstreet, right? So fast forward, it turned us into restaurant brokers. Word started getting around that we were doing. Phil Vitale wrote an article about the economics of like restaurants in COVID, and we had a few quotes in there, and it changed our business. It changed the trajectory of our business. And also during that COVID time, like even before COVID, like people were already like very talented chefs and CDCs and general managers were thinking about leaving their company. Like things were getting uncomfortable, right? So when there's uncomfort, you start changing and thinking. And I started helping some of these folks do deals, and then they start like winning awards. Like and you know, like you've got the first deal I did right before COVID, but with Goldstreet was my very first lease was with Zach Engel and Andres Clavero. It's a restaurant called Galit in Lincoln Park. They've got a Michelin star, and those guys are like my ride or die. I love them to death. Like, and like, let me just, I'll do a little bit of storytelling. So I was apparently their third broker. The first two brokers were really focused on like putting them in like Fulton Market or River North. And again, this is pre-pandemic, right? And rents were like crazy high, and they are crazy high. You know what rents are, right? So I had just come on the scene, and their attorney, this guy named David Silver, is like, I want you to, like, you're frustrated with your broker. I want you to meet this guy. And Zach and Andres met at Tulane University down in New Orleans. So like having a New Orleans connection really boded well for me. And I'd eaten at some of their restaurants that they had worked at in New Orleans and in Philadelphia. They worked at Zahav and Saba down in New Orleans. And so I knew what they were. I remember being very technical. I said, Zach, Andres, what kind of restaurant are you doing? Like, we're doing an Israeli restaurant, very much like the ones we worked at before. I'm like, I've been in those restaurants. I know you have. Are you going to cook with charcoal? Are you going to cook with wood burning? Are you going to cook with gas? All three? And they're like, yes. I'm like, then you need 3 separate hoods per Chicago code. And to run a kitchen exhaust is expensive. To do it 3 times is even 3 times more expensive. And you don't want to do that in an office building. Like, because going through 5, 6, 20 stories of exhaust, it's so expensive. So I said, we got to find a second generation space that's a 1-story building, because going whatever 8 feet up is very cheap, easy to maintain, easy to install. And I said, and if you're going to go like unapologetically Israeli, which they did at first, and now they're just modern Mediterranean, I said, we should look at Lincoln Park. It's close enough to the city. The density and the wealth was there. The largest concentration of synagogues in a 1-mile radius was there. And Uber was like really like taking over on the scene. And it used to be from River North. Everyone wanted to be in River North at the time. To go from River North to Lincoln Park, it was like $6 on an Uber. I'm like, this makes sense. But it also and it was a part of this, like where they are now, it's part of a street where there wasn't a lot of foot traffic and it felt more destination. But I said, if you're going to go and leverage your James Beard Award and probably win more awards and get a Michelin star, then I think we can make a bet, and I think people will come to you. And to their credit, they crushed it, and they opened a second location called Cafe Yaya next door, which we were happy to help them with. And then we started working with other chefs too, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, that are all winning awards. And then you kind of get associated with them. Obviously, I don't know how to cook. I just know how to like protect them on the deal and make sure they're not overpaying for rent or putting themselves in a bad spot, right?
Absolutely. Um, I want you to go into a little bit of like your process as a broker, like I guess like helping people understand what the life cycle of a deal might look like and how involved you are with these restaurateurs and other individuals in making decisions, not only just locationally, but about how they want to market their business and how much location actually matters, especially in a city like Chicago.
Yeah. So it depends on the concept. For sure, if you're going for a Michelin star and you can actually get it, then location doesn't matter as much.
Yep.
I'd rather you take an inferior location than pay, like, why pay maximum rent to be on Michigan Avenue if they're going to come to you anyway? So because every dollar in rent saved is a dollar to the bottom line. So for those type of chefs or those type, like, let's find second gen spaces to keep the cost down. I mean, look at where Kasama is, like Winchester and Augusta, surrounded by homes. Like, it is not a place where someone should be very successful as a restaurateur unless you can give a reason for people to go there.
Right.
So it's just about the pedigree. So like the life cycle of the deal, how involved I am. So I'm very involved until the moment the lease is signed. And after that, I'm just a fun customer, and I kind of like come in and out, and other people take over because also what does that look like? It's identifying spaces, it's connecting them with the proper interior designer, architect, lease attorney, liquor license attorney, trademark attorney, all these people, trying to build a team. And we've worked with a lot of partners in Chicago that are super passionate about like the hospitality world and want to help them out. And
Yep.
I try to promote them all as possible, right? And so it's really about negotiating that letter of intent, negotiating the lease, picking a good attorney to help them. Like, I mean, it's so funny. Like I'm going to say this, like the difference between an attorney who's a restaurant expert and who's not can save you tens of thousands of dollars. Like and they're not thinking of the nuances, like on like percentage rent, like carving out like what fees can be carved out of percentage rent. A lot of people just don't carve it out. And a lot of people just pay percentage rent. And you don't know I know a little bit, like I can get you to like 90% there, but then that attorney will hit home and do another 110%. It's crazy. So I'm involved, but the moment they sign a lease, I do want to stay involved, but I can't. Because like as a broker, you're trying to make a job. You're very transactional.
Yeah.
So it's about deal flow. So I'm honestly on to the next deal once the lease is signed. But how do I stay involved? Like, I don't know if you follow me.
Yeah.
I eat out 5 days a week, and it's either like supporting my clients that have supported me that we've worked together with, or trying to build new business. But like I love dining out. Before I was a restaurant broker, I would always go out to eat. It's just something that me and my wife like to do, and now my kids like to do. And I think my kids have been in more Michelin star restaurants than anyone their age. Like, it's whatever.
Awesome.
And but like it's not about that. It's about like it's really about supporting the restaurant ecosystem. And I am very unapologetically, I don't like going to chains.
Mhm.
I love independent restaurants that are based here in Chicago. Like, think about this. Like, you go to like Raising Cane's, delicious chicken or whatever, but those profits go to Texas.
Yep.
Why not go to like, I don't even know this guy. I've never met this guy, but like Fry the Coop.
Yep.
Like, I'd rather support him, and I do support him. I'll buy his chicken sandwiches, and the money stays in Chicago, and it supports, it stays in our ecosystem. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if other people think like that, but that's just how I think.
Yeah.
And I think the independent restaurant scene is such an important part of our economy, especially with providing jobs and teaching young kids how to be good stewards to the neighborhood and be good employees and eventually inspire them to open their own restaurants. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's a beautiful circle. Did I
Absolutely.
answer your question? Yeah.
100%. No, I'm the same way. I mean, Chicago has so much to offer in the food scene. I'd much rather go to something that is a one-of-one or authentic location than a chain, right? Whether it's, a coffee shop at a cafe versus Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. Like, I'm gonna choose the
Sure.
coffee shop that's unique to the city any day. Um,
Now there's probably one exception, which is probably like pop-up bagels out of New York.
Yeah.
Oh my God. A little plug for them. Anyway.
um, what are some of your favorite independent restaurants in the space? I don't want to get you in trouble because I know you have a lot of friends in the industry, but what are some more hidden gems and some of Allen's favorites that people don't talk about?
Oh, God, there's so many. I will lean over to my clients for sure, you know, and, you know, we kind of touched on this. Like, we talked about like random acts of kindness and how we treat people and treat them better than others. There are definitely some restaurateurs out there that provide a level of service that make people feel so at home, more at home than they do at their own home.
Right.
Right? They offer companionship and recognition and acknowledgement and like joy to see your face. And there's a lot of lonely people out in the world, right? And like you're paying to be, yes, like have a nice meal, but to like there's nothing better than being a regular and people know you. Like, that's a great feeling. And people crave that. They crave that hospitality just as much as the food. There's a long debate, like which is more important, the food or the hospitality. I will not get into that with you, but like, so when I think about that, like obviously I think about Galit, like they will always come to the table and talk, and we'll talk shop, we'll talk about family, we get in each other's lives and we support each other. Like, it's good. I love the team at Kasama. I drop them a lot, but like, they used to like comp some things for me, and I'm like, don't comp anything. Like you're a small business. And like, what I would love is if like I could just go through the back door when there's a long line outside. And they're like, yes, for you, Ellen. Like maybe once a month you can come through the back, right? So I'm like, I'll take it. I don't take advantage of it. Maybe once a year I'll do it. But it's like that doesn't cost their business anything. And it feels like a superpower. And when you have your guests or your wife or your kids or your friends come through the back door, that's cool. Eric Williams from Virtue, him and Damar Brown are slinging some amazing Southern food down in Hyde Park. I have a strong affinity to Hyde Park because I did a lot of work for University of Chicago.
Okay.
And they're leasing down there. And like his team, even though I've never met some of these people, they know who I am and they'll come and say hello and introduce. Now those are clients. I will say Joe Flam, who's got Rosemary and Il Carciofo, and he's got Bartuto right now, all in the West Loop. Like, I met him a few times. Like, I'm not his broker. He's not my client, but I love his restaurants. And I don't know, like he manages to like, I think he flags me as a VIP and, or like just, someone of notice. And the manager always comes and says hello. And like that, it just makes me feel good. Right.
Right.
Another one who's not a client, there's a guy, Ryan O'Donnell, who owns Ballyhoo and Gemini
Okay.
Restaurant and Danucci's. And I love this story. I remember it was during the pandemic and we were trying to support restaurants. So we were ordering to go from all these restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the name of the restaurant? It's on Southport. Anyway, order from the restaurant, they deliver the food. And then like 30 minutes later, I get a call from the restaurant. And it's like, it was the general manager calling to see how my meal was. Now, have you ever had a restaurant call you for
Never.
a call? And it struck with me because I'm a room service. I started out in hospitality as a room service manager.
Yeah.
And that is one of the key cornerstone service points you have to hit to get to 5 diamond ratings. And like the fact that this GM like just connected with me in that way. And like if she would have said, okay, I'm glad you had a great meal. You know what? We got some awesome gelatos and desserts. Would you like to place an order for like a second delivery? I would have done it. She didn't do it, but like so close, but like that level of service is great. of course, I'm like, my wife's Chinese, and I love everything in like in Chinatown or like Argyle and Broadway, that area. Sun Wa is a great spot, but there's so many good restaurants,
Yeah.
which is great. I love that there's so many options. Like you can eat at a different restaurant every day for a year and have some
Never,
amazing, great meals and never run out.
yeah.
Exactly.
No, I love it. Some amazing spots there. I want to get back into your story. Um, you kind of left off on the portion of you're kind of getting ramped up with Goldberg. You're getting out of COVID. You're helping some owners and clients, restructure their lease pro bono.
Yeah,
What does that segue into, right? Because you guys kind of built a name as a prominent duo and within your space, I,
for
I I
sure.
think, and I think that's how I kind of first came into contact and became aware of you through some mutual, friends and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But you know, what did the success look like there? How did that transpire? And really, what developed that? Like, what was the momentum that started to snowball there?
So we always believe that deals beget more deals, right? So, and but people don't know who does the deals all the time. Like no one knows who the broker is for all these restaurants, right?
Right.
So you have to publicize it. So we started testing with social media, and David was very much the face of the company, and I was his camera guy. And I love being his camera guy. Like I love like scripting and holding the phone, trying drone work, and then I would do all the post production and editing. And like I did not know that would those the time and hours spent learning how to do that would be so beneficial to me today
Mhm.
with Kain Real Estate. But you know, I believe as a dynamic duo, like we were recognized as one of the best restaurant brokerage teams in Chicago, right?
For
Like,
sure.
and we had some big clients. We were in Chicago. We did like JoJo's Shake Bar. We did all the Hampton social deals, and when Hampton started doing his spinoffs with like Cochina, like that was great. And then we did Billy Dak with Sunda, like the Sunda Fulton Market deal was a
Wow.
wild deal that we did during COVID. And then we did, 50/50 group. We ended up doing like a 15,000 square foot restaurant at the base of Willis Tower. And those are like, the bigger the restaurant, the bigger the fees and the bigger the deals,
I was gonna say, how much does the name of the people that you're backing, repping, like help that progress?
Yeah, it's
Everything.
everything. I mean, it's because it's subtly so David was a master at getting those big restaurants, and I leaned in on like award-winning independence,
Mhm.
and then being able to like put on our website logos for both types of businesses showed our like swath and our diversity. And if these top brands that are great employers that have great reputations, and like if they would trust us for the real estate, we're just as good. We could do the same thing for you. That was implied. So it is very much a resume, and we tried very hard to promote that. Um, the next level up is to do chains. Like brokers love doing chains.
Mhm.
Like why wouldn't you want to be the broker for Starbucks and do 1,000 Starbucks in the state of Illinois and get a commission on each one? And it's like rinse and repeat. It just becomes mindless. You're just pumping them out, right?
Right.
And you make a lot of money. But at the end of the day, we were too young of a company to get those. But then we started celebrating like the people that did trust us, and we love that. Like Avli is another one. Like people love Greek food, and it's like we would just stamp out some of those deals, and that helped us get more deals. And we would definitely work on social media and promotion on that, and because that's there's a thing that we believe is that the most successful broker isn't necessarily the smartest one in the room. It's the most well known. So it's like, how do you get your name out there? It's a lot of it. It feels weird. It's like self promotion at the end of the day,
I was
right?
just gonna ask, besides relationships, which is the obvious answer, what makes a broker that gets a lot of deals versus one that doesn't? What makes someone better than the next?
So, I, I think that's hard, right? There's so many nuances there. Look, all right, let me just back up. So I started Kain Real Estate, and I'm very much coming out as like a hospitality broker specialist.
Sure.
One, because a lot of companies have trusted me for their work, and I've done it successfully. But the other thing is like as a new company, I mean, there's probably like I don't know 15,000 brokers in the state of Illinois, And how am I as a new company going to stand out? So I picked the niche, right?
Mhm.
I don't know what Kain's going to look like in 10 years. I have no idea. But right now, like the only way I can stand out is to lean on the deals that I've done in the past that get people excited about food and somehow like, and I get permission from these clients. Can I use your name on my website? Can I say that I'm your broker? And they all say yes. So it's good, right? And I just want to be thought of. So, and that's what my social media that I'm starting to do is trying to connect those dots there. Um, but what makes someone look, I think the basics of a real estate broker, it's really you gotta I don't know how to say this, like, you gotta, like, pick up the phone when somebody calls or return the call within the same day. You gotta know how to follow up in 4 hours, 24 hours, 3 days later, a week later, a year later, and there's a different strategy for each one. I don't know, I actually a lot of what I learned in sales after, like, advanced stuff, after working with McCaffery and then after working with David, once I got what I needed from them and I needed another level. There's this guy named Grant Cardone, like
Yeah.
I am in his coaching program and I got
Oh,
one of his coaches, this guy Chris Dennis, and I've been with him for about a year and a half. Have I 10x my revenue? I was definitely on the way of doing that. Like it was wild how having a professional coach in sales and the guy they assigned me, he owns a brokerage in Canada, a residential brokerage in Canada, and he built one of his brokerages to like 300 agents, then sold it to Compass, and now he's at like a 10 person boutique team, and he's building again. And like he's like in his late 60s, and his business is on autopilot. He's got the right people in place. He knows how to scale, and he has this passion for coaching, and he follows everything Grant Cardone says. And we talk every week, and he I mean, something as simple as like there's this there's this long unspoken rule where I'm a listing agent. I got this space that's available for lease, and then you are a broker and you represent a tenant, and you bring the tenant over, look at the space, you like it, and the unspoken rule is that you as the tenant rep broker have to write the offer to me because if someone said whoever makes the first offer is going to lose or some crap like that, right?
yeah.
So it's always like you got to submit the offer. And people would fight about this. So I remember I was just starting with my coach and he's like, "What was your day like?" I'm like, "Had this showing and it's great. They like the space." He goes, "Well, what's the next step?" I'm like, "Well, they're going to send me an offer." And he's like, "Well, when are they going to send it to you?" And I'm like, "I don't know, whenever they're ready." He's like, "Dude, you write the offer." I was like, "Well, yeah, but we don't do that." He's like, "Who says we don't do that?" And I'm like, "You're right." I called my landlord, like, "I'm writing an offer. I'm sending it to them. I really believe in them." And they signed a freaking lease. Like a few weeks later, right? But we got the deal done. I didn't wait. So like little shifts in like assertiveness and confidence and sales tactics like really help. That's how you like stand out better.
Love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I was gonna say everything you do is sales, right?
100%. Yeah.
You're always selling yourself no matter what, and especially with what you do. Um, I want to segue into kind of the birth of Kane here a little bit.
Sure.
Right. So I'll ask you, I guess, just very simply, like, how did you know you were ready to take that next leap then in that next phase?
So I that's a hard question to answer.
Sometimes you don't know
You don't know.
that you are.
Okay, so there was a monumental moment where and a reflection point. You know, first it was, do I stay at Goldstreet or do I go? And I made the decision I need to go. And then it was, do I go work for one of the one of the 20 great brokerage houses in Chicago or start my own? And there's pros and cons
Yep.
to both of those. And I interviewed with all the brokerages and seriously considered all. Actually, the ones I cut out first were the ones like the New York brokerages, the San Francisco, Dallas brokerages that have offices here.
Yep.
Like, we want you on our team. And I'm just like, yeah, I want my profits to stay here in Illinois. So I cut all those guys out, except for like the big houses, such as CBRE, Jones Lang LaSalle, Cushman and Wakefield, like those type of folks. I entertained those. And I got pretty far down in the interview process over like a 2 week span. Definitely got job offers. Uh, and I had my pick, really. Then I started thinking, like, I'm 47 years old and I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, I think that if I'm ever going to start my own brokerage, Like, what am I waiting for? I think when I started, I'm gonna say, why didn't I do this sooner? And that was what I was thinking. But then I would interview with these brokers and talk with their founders, and they are masters of persuasion. Like they are like, you need to come with me. Like you want to make your own logo and make your own brochures. Like we'll do everything for you, and you just got to sell. And I'll say like JLL put on full court press, like
Really?
sign on bonuses, offices, support. Like it was like carte blanche, like what you want to do. And it was giving me these feelings of like at McCaffery in a corporate office again. And like I realized that. So I was talking to this guy named John Vance, who's one of the owners of Stone Real Estate, which is a local brokerage, and he was very much courting me as well, and I love him to death, and definitely in the running. And but he was the only one that asked. He's like, "Why haven't you signed with us yet? Like, what are you waiting for?" And I said, John, I have this. I'm contemplating this idea of starting my own thing, and I'm trying not to be dumb about it. It's definitely scary. And he goes, then you need to stop talking to owners of real estate brokerages, and you need to start talking to founders and talk about like see what their journey was like and what their advice is to you. And there were two people that stood out that I spoke to. One is a guy named David Grossman, who's the CEO of Epic Burgers,
Okay.
and his history working as a broker through with I can't remember, Brookfield, and then he became like the master franchisee for Freshie and took Freshie from like 10 stores to like 2,000 stores, and then did a little stint with DMK Burgers and was going to do that, but then eventually bought Epic Burger and is growing that brand. Uh, that was the first conversation I have, and he was like, "Allan, what do you like? Why are you even hesitating? You've got the mindset, you've got the hard work ethic, like you already know what you're doing. You've been doing this long enough. Why not go for it?" And he's like, "But continue to talk to other founders." And then I talked to a guy named Thad Wong, who started at Properties. And he's like, "Allan, let's go to Beyond. You've been to Beyond before." Yeah. We sat in Beyond for like 2 hours over breakfast. And the things he was saying to me about why it makes sense to like open my own company and why I'm ready for it. And why there's also an army of other entrepreneurs here to support you for every hurdle that you have to get you, because everyone wants to see each other succeed. At the end of the day, they do. Even the other founders of other brokerages are rooting for me, even though I'm like a competitor, right? And like I love that about Chicago. So I looked at my wife. I'm like, I'm going to start this thing, and I got her blessing on it. She's like, if you're getting these kind of job offers, she's like, I don't really know what you do, but like if you get these job offers, then clearly you must be halfway decent at your job. Like you should do it. And so I made that decision. And again, like when I made the transition from McCaffery to Goldstreet, and I said, I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life, I had that same feeling again. Like there's nothing scarier than like saying, I'm starting a new company, and you get that rush of people from like LinkedIn, you go,
Yeah.
and then you go check your emails and it's like no emails. And you're used to checking every 5 minutes and you're like, no email, not a single email. Then you get a spam. And it's like no email, but it's really not a lot of spam because it's a brand new email account, right? So there's like no emails. There were days where I got 0 emails, usually on average 5 emails. And I'm like, oh my God, how do you get the word out? And I was thinking about my time at Goldstreet, and it's like, oh, like I need to lean on social media. Like I got to figure this out. And my early videos, they sucked. I try to storytell or do like a talking head, whatever. And like, to me, they sucked. To some people, it was like, oh, look, Allan's getting out there, right? And then I'm slowly like promoting deals, promoting clients, promoting spaces. And I'm trying to find my voice. I'm still finding my voice right now. But eventually, I, through talking to my coach, now I have a second coach, Christine Singer, who's more of a mindset coach. Like, it's like, all right, you need help, you need support. You can't do it all yourself. And I was on this soul searching, like all through like the winter break. Like, what is my purpose? Is my purpose really to be the greatest restaurant broker, and like slam all these deals? Like I've done those things, and I realized it's not. I'm here to build a platform for commercial real estate that's rooted in the hospitality industry and run this brokerage, not like a broker would run it, like how a restaurateur or a hotelier would run it, and have proper training in place, hire based on personality and aptitude to learn versus having a finance degree right out of like Indiana, right? Uh, and if you've got any experience in hospitality, so the last two brokers I hired, Brody and this guy Rich, who's starting April 15th, like they are bartending right now, and I love that because it's such a grind, and it just shows that they'll do anything to like make ends meet, which I love the dedication, and to be able to like have the gift of gab and converse with hundreds of people every night and make a connection to earn a tip, like that's where I started. Like that's I, I have mad respect for people like that. So I'm not the type of brokerage house that's gonna steal top talent from other brokerages. It's not my MO. I think my purpose in life is to teach the next generation how to do what I do. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
There's definitely a playbook, but I think I believe you have an advantage if you work in the hospitality industry, you know how to treat people. And what I'm hoping is that, when my clients talk to me, I don't feel like they're talking to their broker. I think they're talking to someone else in the hospitality industry that happens to know about real estate. And then I protect them and get them great deals. So
Love it. No, it's super inspiring. You took a full circle from your days with Kimpton and you just looped that in with Kain. I love it.
yeah.
What were some of those like really quick, early, shocking or challenging moments though when you went from, you still had some structure with Goldstreet. I know it was a little bit more eat what you kill, but there was still a little bit of that comfort and structure there to then completely making the leap. What were like a couple of the initial, shock factor things you're like, oh wow, I never would have thought about it like this until I was in these shoes.
Like as a founder of Kain,
Yes.
I think you don't realize, I didn't really realize the cost of like running the business, uh, but I think I figured out a way to minimize costs. Like
Mhm.
right now, it costs me about, every time I hire a broker, my expenses are about $700 a month, which is, I think, the lowest it's ever been in the history. I don't have office space. We run everything virtually. Um, a lot of that money is tied to like, what do you call it? Like the MLS,
Mhm.
CoStar, MLS, like software that you need to be part of the business. And, you know, I started looking at office space. I don't know how much to pay for this. This is a gorgeous office, but like you got to have real revenue coming in. And as a young company, like I didn't have, in the first 6 months, I had one check come in and I had to beg and plead for that check to come in. Right.
Yeah.
It's, so you're watching your savings deplete. Like you think you have enough money to run it. Whatever money you think you need, you literally need double. Otherwise your mind, you go crazy. You start having crazy thoughts, and then you need to talk it out with a rational person, right? I think also like I missed making decisions with a partner, like with David, right? We would always bounce ideas. We play devil's advocate, and you don't have that anymore. This is gonna sound really wild. I spent a lot of time talking to ChatGPT because
Yeah.
it seemed to be the most rational, and not even just talking, like doing the audio, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Alan, how can I help you today?" I'm like, "This is what I'm thinking, blah blah blah," and having that dialogue, and it's actually pretty good. Like,
It helps.
it helps a lot, right?
I'm a big advocate of the speak the voice to
Yes.
ChatGPT,
I mean,
100%.
I really felt like that movie Castaway when Tom Hanks is talking to the volleyball Wilson. Like that's what I look at my phone as. I should call it Wilson.
Yeah, I was telling somebody on my team yesterday, sometimes I get in arguments with ChatGPT. It's hilarious. No, I mean, it all 100% makes sense. And, I think one of the hardest things for a lot of newer founders and entrepreneurs is that sense of reassurance, that sense of security.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's nobody when you're in it, whether you're a 10 out of 10 expert within your industry or not, telling you your score along the way, right?
Right.
Yes, there's these measures of how much money you're making and how much notoriety you have that kind of tell you, okay, you're doing this well versus not. But still as the founder, you're gonna always feel like someone's chasing you, and you're never can,
For sure.
safe.
Well, I think it was really important for me to figure out my purpose because the first, whatever, not 6 months, the first 4 months, it was like I'm just trying to bring in business to try to make $1
Sure.
and get some money. And it felt like a hamster wheel, right? Versus just a slight mind shift. What is your purpose? To create a platform so that these brokers can learn from me and make a lot of money. And I can multiply this. I can 10x this. I want to have 20 brokers.
Yep.
Maybe in different cities as well, or maybe 40 or 50, right? And I think if you put together the right platform, I call it I don't know what else to call it, or system, build the system, then when the checks aren't coming in, you're telling yourself you're building something. I'm constantly in building mode right now. And I know, and I already talked earlier about the deal cycle. Tori, who just started with me, her and Brody are only a month into the business, right? Like they're still figuring out and training and learning and trying to do deals at the same time.
Right.
So apply the knowledge they're learning right in real time. But their first check probably won't come till June or July, but all the brokers, Rich, Tori, Brody, AG, they all have other side jobs, and until they can make it work, which that's just the reality. And I can't wait for the day to like write some massive checks for them. Like I know where they all want to be. I know where their goals are. Right. And
That's
it's
awesome.
like, we're going to exceed this.
Yep.
I know it. It just takes time. And I'm indebted to them because they're trusting a guy who has this vision. And it's like a young company. Like they're literally employees 2, 3, and 4, and 5. It's scary. Like
Bro.
who wants to work with a company that you're trying to figure shit out? We're literally writing our SOPs as we speak. And for some people that would be unsettling, but they all have this entrepreneurial spirit and they all want to help. And like, it's nice. It's a nice feeling right now.
That's awesome. I love it. You kind of answered my next question, but I was going to ask you, like, what does success look like for you over the next year for this to feel like it was worth it for you?
Yeah. Very, very low barrier. Like I want each one of the brokers to get through and deal an entire deal by themselves. Right now, right now I'm doing a lot of hand holding.
Sure.
I'm teaching how to write an offer, but then they learn how to write an offer. Now I got to teach them how to find the backup spaces. Then I got to teach them how to go through the leases and then get to that point and introduce them to as many people as possible, all the relationships and all the training. And really, I want to get these 4 independent. Like I can do deals that are where the rents are $20,000 a month or less. I can do them by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to start working on them on deals that are $20,000 to $40,000 a month, which is a little bit more complicated. But because they already know the base, I want to be able to graduate them to that level and then I'd love to bring in 2 more brokers.
Love it.
And then just repeat that process. And then, I don't know, eventually have someone that trains them for me. Like I can only do so much, right? And I don't know. I'm figuring it out. As you can tell, I'm kind of BSing my way through this answer, but that's kind of really what it is. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, no, it seems like you're well on your way. We have a closing kind of question that we usually go through here on the show. And for you, the question is, if you were to go back in time at any age, and I want you to pick the age and kind of tell yourself something that you wish you knew now, what age would that be, and what would that message be?
Oh my God, that's a hard question. You couldn't email me this before in advance?
No, that's the point.
No, that is the point. I would go back to, this is going to sound funny. I would go back to my college freshman year.
Okay.
Where I would literally tell people, I think I'm the best clarinet player in the state, maybe entire Southeast, Southeast US. I would say, get rid of the arrogance and focus on your mindset, because the little voice in your head, I like to call my stupid roommate.
Yep.
It says terrible things to you, And when I say change your mindset, what I'm saying is you can train that voice. Instead of being the naysayer and the doubter, you can change that voice to be your number one cheerleader to go out there and fucking crush it. And I've developed that. I've been working on my inner voice or my second voice over these years, but like, I wish I would have done it sooner.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Allan, well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Extremely inspiring. Tell the cameras, tell the people where they could find you, where they could engage with you, where they could reach out.
The best way is through Instagram. It's Allan_Perales. And one last fun fact, which I haven't told people yet. So the company's called Kain Real Estate, but I'm Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
And when Filipinos see the word, they see kain. And that's how they pronounce it, which is the verb that means to eat. So it's like a little subtle nod
Love it.
to my restaurant clients that helped start me out. But I'll never call it Kain Real Estate. It just sounds too jungle. It'll definitely be Kain Real Estate for a long time. So
Amazing.
thank you. Thanks
Love
for
it.
having me.
Very inspiring. Blink Live. We're out.